Good evening. I'm Sneha Koshi, and the top story and something that everybody is talking about: who will be the next Karnataka Chief Minister? Well, the Congress dilemma over the next Chief Minister of Karnataka seems to be only deepening. According to sources, DK Shivakumar is just not happy with what the Congress High Command has offered him, and after meeting his loyalists in Delhi, has conveyed his decision to Randeep Surjewala and Congress top leaders, including party president Kharge and Surjewala, are in a late-night meeting discussing DK Shivakumar's stand, even as Siddaramaiah is set to become the next Chief Minister. But what is Congress's offer to DK Shivakumar, even as Siddaramaiah has the numbers? Here's the report on the power-sharing formula.
Siddaramaiah is all set to be Karnataka's next Chief Minister after a majority of MLAs voted for him in a ballot backed also by Rahul Gandhi. However, the Congress's message is clear. This doesn't mean DK Shivakumar can be sidelined. In two marathon meetings with Rahul Gandhi and the Congress president today, he was told of the Congress decision, but offered virtually everything else except the Chief Minister's post.
It's only a matter of today or tomorrow, and we will have a new leader of the Congress Legislature Party. Within next 48 to 72 hours, we'll have a new cabinet in Karnataka.
Talks continued all day with several alternative offers to DK Shivakumar. He could be the only deputy chief minister, remain the state Congress chief and pick 6 portfolios of his choice. Or he could share the chief minister's chair with Siddaramaiah and 2.5 years each, with Siddaramaiah getting the first shot. But DK Shivakumar, who believes he deserves the chief minister's job after leading the party to an overwhelming victory, is in no mood for a compromise. Strong resistance from DK Shivakumar, the state Congress chief, meant that the preparations for the swearing-in, scheduled for tomorrow at the Kantirva Stadium in Bengaluru, were abruptly stopped.
I'm at Kantirva Stadium in Bengaluru, and right behind me you can see additional chief secretary who was overseeing all the arrangements here. But then minutes later there was a call from Delhi, according to sources, when they were asked to stall all the arrangements, the carpets being put aside. There were Congress flags that were hanging here. All of them have been removed, and things have been put on hold, according to sources, only because they want a clearance from Delhi after issues are ironed out between the two leaders, DK Shivakumar and Siddaramaiah.
In Bengaluru and Delhi, the celebrations had already begun for Siddaramaiah supporters.
Even before the announcement that Mr. Siddaramaiah is the Chief Minister of the state, we are already looking at supporters who have gathered outside Siddaramaiah's residence in Bengaluru. Crackers are being burst. There's celebration that's happening. Milk offering which is being given to the poster of Siddaramaiah. So all they have decided that Mr. Siddaramaiah is the Chief Minister of the state even before that official announcement.
But by evening, silence, as no decision was announced yet, and DK Shivakumar's camp continued to play hardball. While Siddaramaiah is a mass leader and more popular in the state than DK Shivakumar, the latter's organizational strength, fighting spirit and money power has made him invaluable to the Congress. The big focus now is to show a united front, with several national opposition leaders also expected to be present at the planned grand swearing-in.
It's been a hectic day of political consultations. Both Rahul Gandhi as well as Mr. Kharge have met both top Congress leaders from Karnataka, Mr. Siddaramaiah as well as Mr. DK Shivakumar. Mr. Siddaramaiah continues to be the front runner and in all likelihood will be given the chief ministership. But the big question remains is whether Mr. DK Shivakumar, who remains adamant and defiant on the issue of chief ministership, he insists that as the state president, it is his rightful choice of becoming the chief minister, something that the High Command has asked for time to ensure that they were able to find, as they say, unanimity, unity and consensus. With camera person Sudesh, Sunil Prabhu, NDTV.
and in a startling indicator of how close we may be to irreversible global challenge, the World Meteorological Organization has come out with its latest findings, which indicate that global temperatures will surge to record levels in the next 5 years. The next 5-year period as a whole will be the warmest on the record. These are the main findings.
Well, in a startling indicator of how close we may be to irreversible global climate change, the World Meteorological Organization has come out with its latest findings, which indicate that global temperatures will surge to record levels in the next 5 years. In fact, the next 5-year period as a whole will be likely the warmest on record. Here are the main findings. Between 2023 and 2027, the temperatures near the Earth's surface could be up to 1.8 degrees Celsius higher than the 1850 to 1900 average, which is used as a baseline since there were no emissions of greenhouse gases then. With an El Nino phenomena forming in the next few months, there will be significant warming next year. It starts a year after the El Nino phenomena develops. There is a 98% chance of at least one in the next 5 years beating the temperature record set in 2016. There's also a 98% chance of the 5-year mean between 2023 and 2027 being higher than the last 5 years. Arctic warming is disproportionately high, a huge concern, and precipitation patterns in this 5-year period indicate that there is deep inconsistency within regions receiving rainfall, some getting more, others receiving far less. So why is this important? Because an increase in global temperatures above 1.5 degrees will have an adverse impact with related losses and damages that could affect billions around the world.
And the Quad summit in Australia has been cancelled, but Prime Minister Narendra Modi's scheduled visit to 3 nations starting on the 19th of this month remains unchanged, including his visit to Australia and Japan.
Cancellation of Quad summit in Australia has not changed Prime Minister Narendra Modi's scheduled visit to 3 nations starting 19th of this month. Prime Minister will be travelling to Hiroshima in Japan to attend the G7 summit on Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio's invite. Prime Minister is expected to hold several bilateral on the sidelines of the summit and also attend a meeting between all the Quad leaders over the weekend. Prime Minister Modi will be addressing the G7 gathering and is expected to speak on issues around peace, stability and climate change. From Japan, PM Modi will travel to Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea, becoming the first ever Indian Prime Minister to visit the island nation. Along with the host nation's Prime Minister, Mr. Modi will be inaugurating the 3rd summit of the Forum of Indo-Pacific Island Cooperation, apart from holding a couple of bilaterals there. Finally, Prime Minister will be heading to Sydney, where he has several engagements. Prime Minister will be sitting down for a bilateral with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. He will also be interacting with the top Australian CEOs and business leaders. A grand welcome and community reception has been planned by the Indian diaspora on 23rd of May, for which major preparations are already underway.
And the Quad meet has been cancelled after US President Joe Biden has bailed out. In fact, the world's biggest economy, the United States, faces a major threat of the government not being in a position to pay its bills. The impact clearly visible even now. Global markets have fallen amid US debt default fears.
The world's biggest economy, the United States, rapidly approaching the date on which the government can no longer pay its bills, forcing President Biden to cancel his trip to Australia for the Quad summit. At home, he was very clear about the risks ahead.
That defaulting on the debt is simply not an option. Our economy would fall into recession. It would devastate retirement accounts, increase borrowing costs, and according to Moody's, nearly 8 million Americans would lose their jobs and our international reputation would be damaged in the extreme if we were to let that happen.
Delaying negotiations is the classic political blame game.
President Biden has delayed. It's going to be around his neck and the Democrats, not the Republicans.
Policy differences between the parties should not stop Congress from avoiding default.
Biden cancelled his trips as he had to be home for negotiations with the Republicans to increase the government's debt ceiling. That is the limit imposed by Congress on the amount of debt the U.S. federal government can have outstanding. The U.S. hit this limit of $31.4 trillion in January, and now the debt has increased to $31.46 trillion, up by 50% in the last 5 years. If the ceiling is not raised, the US's first ever debt default could be as early as the 1st of June, according to the Treasury Secretary. The impact of this is not limited to the US. Global markets have already started falling amid fears of a US debt default, while the Indian markets fell by 0.6%. The US has raised its debt ceiling 78 times in the 63 years since the US Congress first enacted the debt limit. But for now, Biden faces a ticking clock to prevent a default. Priyanshi Sharma for NDTV.
And India has pushed back against a suggestion by a top European Union official for a crackdown on Russian oil resold by Indian firms as refined fuels, with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar saying such exports don't violate EU regulations.
My understanding of the Council regulations is that if Russian crude is substantially transformed in a third country, then it's not treated as Russian anymore. I would urge you to look at Council Regulation 833/2014.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar's stern response to the European Union for trying to tutor India on oil resale. This after the European Union's foreign policy chief urged the European Union to crack down on imports coming from India. While India's External Affairs Minister and the European Union's foreign policy chief met at the trade technology talks in Brussels, the European Union's executive vice president on competition had there said that there was no doubt about the legal basis of the sanctions and that the European Union and India would have the discussion as friends with an extended hand and of course not a pointed finger.
I will not add to this. There is, I think, no doubt about the legal basis of the sanctions. Of course, it is a discussion that we will have with friends, but it will be with an extended hand and of course not with a pointed finger.
Interestingly, European oil majors have made record profits after the surge in energy prices ever since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. While the European Union's goal is to stop feeding Russia's war chest by banning Russian refined oil products in retaliation for the war in Ukraine, experts believe questions can't be raised on a third country such as India now, as if someone is selling oil, there's also a clear buyer for it. Earlier this month, Rajya Sabha MP Jawahar Sirkar, in a letter to External Affairs Minister, mentioned the report by Finland's think tank, the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, on 2 Gujarat refineries making huge profits from exporting Russian oil. India has called this report misleading and a deceptive effort to tarnish India's image. While tackling sanctions evasion is likely to be a key discussion topic at the G7 summit in Japan, it is important to remember the oil market dynamics have clearly changed ever since the Russia-Ukraine war. Sakshi Bajaj for NDTV.
And the Supreme Court on Wednesday slammed the petitioner for mixing the 2016 and 2020 probes with the Hindenburg probe. During the Hindenburg case hearing, petitioner Prashant Bhushan once again demanded to know what came of the 2016 probe conducted by SEBI. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, appearing for SEBI, objected to this. The CJI also agreed with the Solicitor General to Bhushan's demand that SEBI should submit report on the 2016 and 2020 probes. CJI said that the court was only looking at the Hindenburg probe. The court said that the 2016 probe was on global depository receipts and the 2020 probe was on minimum public shareholding. The CJI also cautioned against a roving probe. The Solicitor General had in the last hearing denied the petitioner's claim that SEBI was probing the Adani Group since 2016. The Solicitor General had clarified that none of the Adani companies were part of the 2016 probe. And BJP has begun its poll preparations in Maharashtra with JP Nadda's two-day visit. Meanwhile, even as Sena's Uddhav Thackeray and NCP Sharad Pawar both called for a meeting of their parties to discuss their strategies.
After the Karnataka setback and 2 consecutive by-poll losses in Maharashtra, has the BJP decided to prepare for assembly elections in the state well in advance? Or is this an indication that BMC polls are to be announced very soon? These are the questions that arise as BJP party president Mr. JP Nadda spends 2 days in Mumbai and Pune. Nadda's itinerary is packed with meetings on poll preparations. He will be sitting down with BJP MPs and MLAs along with a separate meeting with the cabinet ministers. In Pune, he will be addressing 1,200 newly appointed members of the Maharashtra Working Committee. The message is simple. BJP has to strive to win all 48 Lok Sabha seats in the state.
सभी समाज के वर्गों को जोड़कर गांव, गरीब, वंचित, पीड़ित, शोषित, दलित सभी लोगों का विकास किस प्रकार से हो सकता है, इसकी बहुत गहराई से चिंतन करके इन स्कीमों को जो आगे लेकर के आए हैं.
There is speculation about BMC polls again after Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis predicted its possibility by October or November this year.
असं आहे की आता आपल्याला कल्पना आहे की साधारणपणे जी सुप्रीम कोर्टातली केस आहे ही आता जुलैमध्ये येईल कारण ती त्यांनी याच्यानंतर व्हॅकेशन नंतर ठेवली आहे. त्याचा अंदाज घेऊन मी बोलून राहिलोय म्हणजे मला काही त्याची कल्पना नाहीये. साधारण जुलैमध्ये केस झाली तर ऑगस्ट पर्यंत समजा निकाल आला तर सप्टेंबर ऑक्टोबरला लागू शकतो असा एक साधारण अंदाज मी केलाय.
On the other end of the political spectrum in the state, both NCP and Shiv Sena held their separate meetings and decided upon capitalizing on the recent observations made by the Supreme Court, which they claim is in their favor.
एग्जैक्ट निकाल क्या रिजल्ट क्या लगा है वो जनता के पास भी पहुंचना चाहिए. ये हेतु से आज मीटिंग माननीय पक्ष प्रमुख उद्धव जी ठाकरे साहब ने ली है और हमने सब शिव सैनिकों ने ये संकल्प किया है जो सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने जो निकाल दिया है, क्योंकि कुछ लोग ऐसे हैं उनके खिलाफ रिजल्ट लगा तो वे पेड़े खा रहे हो, पेड़े भरा रहे हैं, ढोल ताशे बजा रहे हैं.
In the last 1 year, a lot has changed in Maharashtra politics, and now each of these parties are making new strategies based on the new equation that has been formed. With Megha Prasad in Delhi and camera person Praveen Jirohit in Mumbai, Sohit Mishra, NDTV.
And the chief executive of OpenAI, Sam Altman, faced questions about artificial intelligence at a hearing in the United States Senate. Sam Altman told the Senate his industry needs to be regulated by the government as AI becomes increasingly powerful. NDTV's Parmeshwar Bawa takes us through the growing concerns over artificial intelligence bots like ChatGPT and what action governments are planning to take worldwide.
My worst fears are that we, the field, the technology, the industry, cause significant harm to the world. I think that could happen in a lot of different ways.
You know what started out as a situation of panic among educators about ChatGPT's use to cheat on homework assignments has expanded to broader concerns about the ability of generative AI tools to mislead people, spread falsehoods, and violate copyright protections, among other dangers.
We have seen what happens when technology outpaces regulation. The unbridled exploitation of personal data. If you were listening from home, you might have thought that voice was mine and the words from me. But in fact, that voice was not mine. The words were not mine. And the audio was an AI voice cloning software trained on my floor speeches.
As companies like OpenAI roll their products out to a world that may not be prepared for them, how to keep these technologies safe while also allowing them to develop has become an increasingly pressing question. The US government is now trying to figure out what it can and should do about artificial intelligence. The head of the AI company that makes ChatGPT told the US Congress that government intervention will be critical to mitigate the risks of increasingly powerful AI systems. Sam Altman actually proposed the formation of a US or global agency that would license the most powerful AI systems.
I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong. And we want to be vocal about that. We want to work with the government, given that we're going to face an election next year and these models are getting better. I think this is a significant area of concern.
But real guardrails for generative artificial intelligence may not come from the United States at all. The European Union, as I mentioned, appears to have taken the lead on regulating the technology. The AI Act, which has been in the work for years, would classify AI technology by risk levels with corresponding rules according to those risks. It all just shows how other countries are already willing and able to deal with AI's potential for harm, while the US scrambles to figure out what, if anything, it will do. As IBM's Chief Privacy and Trust Officer said at the hearing, the era of artificial intelligence cannot be another era of move fast and break things.